Welcome to Best of Us Investors Platinum Channel Swing Trading Friday Review. Now, every week I do a summary of the Platinum Swing Trading call that we do for members of the Platinum Swing Trading program. Now, it isn't only swing trading, it's really everything. And we have a big selection of different services that we provide under the Platinum channel. So check it out. Go to bus13.ai. That's bus13.ai. In this video, we're going to go over resistance and support levels. I think this is a really great part of the call that we had on Friday. And the reason is because when you're looking at putting on an investment or a trade, and you can use this process not just on a swing trading period of time, so short term, but you can do it on a long-term period of time. And what Mark is teaching us in this next segment is, I think, very valuable. And I think you need to pay attention because this can really pay off down the road, especially as there has been a lot of conversation about core portfolio management, long-term holdings, and using these support and resistance levels can help you risk manage your overall long-term portfolio along with your short-term investment strategy. If it's swing trading or just day trading or whatever it is, resistance and support levels are a key part of it. So let's let Mark get into it.
Just going to show you some stocks first. Sorry about that. And of how powerful the resistance level is. And we'll start here. This is IVZ Invesco. You can see it had a nice run up. And then here's our intermediate resistance level. Boom, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now it's popped up one day. Okay, I don't consider that something to be joyous about yet because we're right here where the cells are. You can see it popped right up. I'll show you a couple more. Well, it does this, it'll pop above. But as long as you're in a sideways pattern, I wouldn't myself personally get into this position until it showed me an upward or a downward trend. Because unless you're going to go, and kind of trade between the lows and the highs, you might be able to do that. But it's not something that I would get into just because it hasn't decided which way it's going to break out. And that intermediate resistance level is a tough level. Let's look at VRTX. Same thing. See, it popped up over here, came back down. Now it's below, and it's just having trouble. And then right next to it, you see all your people have their cells in right here. Again, it's undecided on where it's going to go. It's tough to trade up in this area. Caterpillar. Here's Caterpillar. Now this would have been a nice one. You see right here. There's the 200. It popped above the 9. If I'd have caught this one again, that would have been a nice place to get in. You just stay above the 9. I'm kind of risk averse. I probably would have got out, along one of these Bollingers, but it rode all the way up and then boom, hit its intermediate resistance 2, 3, 4. It still hasn't gotten over it yet. This is not an area that I'd recommend, or any area above the Bollinger Band, even though this one shows, it did pretty well. It went up, stayed sideways, and then it went up and hit the resistance. I try not to buy when it's above Bollinger Band. If it's running along the Bollinger, that's a better deal. But then we hit resistance, and you can see what happened to Caterpillar. And we're just still sitting there today. And then PWR again. Here's PWR. You can see it was running up, and you're above the Bollinger Band, and it's pretty strong. We had a good market this week. Hit resistance, went above resistance, sideways. Now you've got the 9 and the resistance right together, and we'll have to see what happens. Start to see a curl up, maybe a curl down on the Bollinger, sideways movement. We'll see if it can get past that. If it can make a run up, you got a ways till you see the cells. The seller traders have it up a little higher, so they might be anticipating run up, but I don't see it at this point yet. I'm just still seeing kind of flat, and we're seeing the RS or the stochastic kind of bending over here. So that's the power resistance. So, Margaret was playing around the resistance lines today or this week, and I'll show you some of her charts, but I try not to, again, this would have been a good one. You had the 9 crossover, the 200 would have been nice to get in at this point. If you didn't get a full candle close, you could have rode this all the way up and hit that resistance and got out, there or at any one of these Bollinger Bands. You'd have made a nice profit. on those. Let's look at support, because support is equally important on the other side. So FedEx, I don't know what it's done today, but FedEx came out with a bad earnings report. And this was a couple days ago, Tuesday. And it came right down. And look where it went. Boom. Right to the 50, right to the 50, right to the 50, or the 200, I mean, sorry. And it hasn't gotten past the 200 yet. We're seeing disaster down here on the MACD, disaster on the R side, disaster on the stochastic, but it hasn't got across. So these are the kind of things you'll watch and say, okay, is it going to pop back up? When is the 9 going to come back down? It's racing down now. Is this something potentially we get back into a situation like this where it goes back up? So this looks terrible, but these things always go on my watch list because I want to catch this. And this is a perfect place to start looking for right here at the 200 if it can hold. The other one that I saw from support, EXC, same thing. Just cruising along, boom, 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 came all the way down. This is an intermediate support level that the program puts on. Came down, went under, went over, hit it again, and now you're starting to see a little bit of curling. So here's the 9 racing down. Here's where some sell. So, and again, support is as important on the bottom. If it breaks through that, then it becomes resistance. Then you got resistance on the top. You see it came up here, hit resistance, boom. So that's why I make it so important that we look at support and resistance. And that's the baseline for when I start looking at where you want to get in and where you want to get out. And Margaret, are you still there, Margaret? There she is. Margaret did some trading this week, and I think you did Wells Fargo, and you made some money. But I look at Wells Fargo, and what you're doing is you're really kind of playing the zone here. If you put a box around here between lows and highs. So I would rather, Margaret, have gotten in back here.
Well, me too.
Yeah. So you made money on it, but we talk about risk reward, and I'm going to show you something on risk reward. And so your reward is on the high side, okay, which is, there's not very high, and your risk is on the low side. So you have a lot further to go down than you do to go up. So when you make a trade, you place an order, think about that a little bit. But she made money on it, so that's good. And let's see, what else did you do? SYM. And we do this on the Discord. So she'll tell us, and everyone tells us what we're doing on the Discord. But I look at SYM, and here's another one. I mean, it kind of has some range around it, but it's playing right here on the resistance line. And I think, Margaret, you made some money on this too.
Yeah.
So, but
not
I'm
much.
looking for more of this. Yeah. Well, you didn't lose, and that's good. But you'll make a lot more if you don't play so close to the resistance line. And then I think the last one you did was CSX today.
Yeah, I've had that for several days, and it just kept wandering.
And see here again, for 5 days we've been hitting this resistance line, and so you got out and it was good. But again, here's where it crossed over the 50 or the 200 right here, and I would have waited to make sure it didn't do one of these. And then if you would have got in at this point, you might have got out here. Once it hit the 9, you could have got back in and just ride this thing. But yeah, when you play along the resistance line, your reward at the top is not as good as your risk at the bottom.
That makes sense. Great.
Yeah, so just be aware of that, Margaret. I'm glad you made money on it. But you gotta be careful about that. So here's a visual that I haven't showed you guys before about risk reward. Hopefully it's still up and I didn't erase it. Oh, it is up. Sweet. So this is CVS, and this is just an example. So in CVS, you can see it's moving sideways, not doing much. And then all of a sudden we see some momentum. It pops above the 9, pops above the 50, finds resistance right here, okay, at the 200. Then it pops above resistance at the 200 and it closes above it. So I'm like, okay, I wouldn't do anything then because it could pop back down. But we got confirmation the next day, it stayed right about above the 200. So if you would have got in, let's just say, where is that, 74.01 or whatever, here is support down here, Margaret, which is the 200 now. And here is your resistance, which is where the cells are. So the red zone represents your risk, Okay.
Mhm.
So the risk on this trade, because the 200 is at 71.56, it's $2.45 down, okay, on your shares. Now, the reward on this trade, because here's where your resistance is on this particular chart, is this is 79.93. So that's $5.92 of a reward versus $2.45 on a risk. So that comes out to be about a 2.4 to 1 risk reward ratio. So that's
Wow.
this gives you a better, and you can see what happens. Okay. And you might go down below and you're following your charts, but that's when you look at it, when you trade up next to the resistance, Margaret, and you only give yourself this much
Yeah,
and this
right.
much downside, that's where you can get into trouble. So
Right.
think about that when you get in, when you're looking at a position, or should I buy in or should I not? How much do you have on the upside just based on your resistance and support levels, and how much do I have on the downside just based on your your support level down there?
Now in this part, Mark goes over the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ 100. And what you're going to see in this is how the resistance and support levels have been playing out over the last couple of weeks, and how you can use what Mark just talked about earlier in this video and apply it to long-term strategy management and risk management. So let's let Mark talk about the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average.
So here's our S&P 500. This is our week. I mean, we've had a big week. This was our down day where, but if you back it off and look at it, you can see we're just going pretty much sideways. You have intermediate resistance. You have sell stops right above the intermediate resistance. Our Bollinger Band is kind of flattening a little bit. We still have a rising 50, we have a rising 200, a rising 9, and a rising 20. Still look at all the oscillators. They're flat, high and flat and rolling. We go back, 6 months. We can see, we started right here in October and rode it all the way up, and now we're banging again on the intermediate resistance line. Take a look at the Dow, the DIA. We're seeing the same pattern. Okay, seeing a bunch of sideways patterns up, sideways patterns up, sideways patterns. So it's just a matter of are we gonna run out of steam, or what's going to happen? And I think next week is going to continue this pattern. I don't know anything for sure. It's just based on volume, and everyone's going to be gone unless something happens in the market. That's what we're going to see. And then even for the NASDAQ, you see we up, sideways, sideways. So I would expect that again next week. We'll see what happens.
At the end of Kerry's call the other day, there was a conversation about buy and hold. And I was put on the spot, which happens a lot, and that's okay. And I like it. And we talked about why buy and hold is not working in today's age. And I pointed out to one of the tribe members that you can be a buy and hold person. But if you don't spend a little time learning the charting system, if it's just using support and resistance, if it's creating a simple moving average process around your long-term investment strategy, you're going to eventually not achieve the financial or the goals that you have when it comes to growing your wealth. See, the world has changed in the last 50 years. You have the internet, you have monetary policy, and these things and geopolitical elements that are greatly affecting our markets. And this is where the set it and forget it strategy is starting to come back and hurt people. And this is why I encourage you to learn these strategies and apply them. They don't have to be complicated. They can be very simple, but learning how this works and spending a half an hour to an hour a week looking at your finances and looking at how you're managing your money could be the difference between retirement and a great retirement versus no retirement and working the rest of your life. That's it for me. Check us out at bus13.ai. It's Best of US Investors. Check out our Platinum channel. It's a fantastic service. We look forward to seeing you soon. Take care and have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Peace. Live loud.